You can probably tell by the way I'm dressed that it's an unseasonably cold morning in Florida, and my friend Susan wishes she could get into the van. And while there are some hardy and well-dressed souls here, I think I'm going to join them in walking around for the first hour or two because I'm cold and I don't want to open my booth yet. First thing I'm going to zero in on here, because I love the color. This does not actually fluoresce under a black light, but it is so bright it really doesn't need to. This is Westmoreland satin glass, and in the green, it just has a really, really strong pop of color. This open lace piece would have been done in the late 60s, early 70s. I like this guy. He's dressed up for the cold too. He's got the same expression I do. Rachel's decorator and gift shop in Pocatello, Idaho. He definitely looks like a Widco style figure. And he's only $15, and because I've got that Northwest connection, I think I'm going to get him. Here's a pretty copper luster with painting. At first they seem to mainly trim things in blue. You see the dancers here. Boy, the prices are really good on these now. Only $15. That used to be a $50 piece. And then this one's really nicely done with a little more shaping and a little more painting. This is going to be a second generation, probably around 1870 approximately. And boy, at $15, I mean, that's really attractive. I feel like that could sell for $30, even in this era. The prices have come way down on these, and I think it's just because it was something that a lot of old collections came out at once and new people didn't know what it was, so they ignored it. But I think that's pretty sharp looking. It seems to be in perfect condition, and it's priced the same as the little ones. So I just don't know how you could go wrong. This is a cool piece. This was done by McCoy, but it was done as a pet food jar, so it's very modernist. You don't see any mark on the bottom there because it was actually, the mark was for the company that they did it for. But there's a little bell in the top to get kitty or puppy to come for their treats. This box that all the lighters are in is cool. This is natural Egyptian cigarettes. You see a lot of these kind of boxes in the 1920s because with the discovery of King Tut's tomb, everything that had to do with Egyptology became popular as motifs. So there you go. It's not in great shape, but it's sure a neat little tin. I don't know whether they're selling that separately of all the lighters, though. One step closer, soldier, and you'll get a bust in the mouth. I can't even comment on that. Democratic Party 1952. That's by Fallsgraph. A lot of companies did stuff for one or both parties, depending on the season. Let's see if they've heard about fairy lamps. Gloria Finn is the painter. It's a full signature. The candle wax is still in the bottom, and they have $70 on it. So yes, they are aware. My friend Susan has a bunch of really cool Woodard fiberglass furniture here. Edward Woodard did a lot of the metal designs that you see for various makers of outdoor furniture, and this spun fiberglass is something we see a lot in Florida. You do see in other parts of the country as well. It's very popular. It stands up to weather well. I believe she's got $300 on the table and chairs, which is a pretty good price there. This large brass piece that looks like it was made in the Middle East is one of the most elaborate shoe shine stands I've ever seen, with all sorts of bottles for tonics for your shoes as well. And there's where you would put your foot. Priced at $485. I've never seen one so elaborate. Look at this really cool Golden Moon Orange Tangy. This looks like something probably from about 1950. It looks like the old school ones from the 20s, but this is later. This is from Steel City Manufacturing. It is the Cool Air Cooler. So this would be something that you could take out and fill with orangeade at a party or an event that was not in a soda fountain. Really neat piece from the early 50s. It's beautiful millefiori lamp. Now this is a 20th century, later 20th century version. But you see pieces like this that go back all the way to the early 1900s. This one is priced at $850. The shade and the base are a match, which is important. Millefiori is where they do all of the glass rods, melt them together, and then cut them so that they have these designs. And then when they blow it, they actually expand out, so you get some that pull. It's just a really cool look, and I love this shape. This is a fantastic clock. Hey, how are you? Is the clock Potosi? Yeah, I thought so. That is fantastic.
Rudy Fox and Henry Miller. Henry Miller.
Oh, it's a Henry Miller clock. Oh,
It's all
It's all of that.
Quality designed it.
Aldo Landi for Batassi, done for Miller. Wow.
Birding clock.
That is pretty amazing. That's
Oh, with the pizza clock.
the pizza clock. Yes, because of the wedges. That's just great. What a fantastic piece. I've never seen one in person, and that's kind of everything if it's all those designers in one. Very cool. You always have great stuff, though. My friend here always gets really cool pottery. And tell me about these pieces, because you've got some real prices on them, and I don't know.
This is Fenton.
Ah, wonderful. Wow. For Raymore, yes.
This is Batassi.
Also Batassi, okay.
This is Alvaro Corte.
Oh, I see. And there's the signature Alvaro Corte in the bottom.
Batassi is usually signed Italy.
Right.
If it's signed up like that, or it looks like Zitaly,
Uh-huh.
that's Alvaro Londi's signature.
Oh, interesting. Oh, thank you. That's really interesting to know. So, where it's almost like a Z at the beginning or a small K side. This is Spanish, isn't it?
It's Mexican or Spain. I'm not sure. She's on the internet. She's a famous person.
Esmaltes Garcia is somebody we should know. Okay, well, I have to do a little looking into this. I've seen the pieces before. I've never seen the label before. It feels like tinware that's enameled.
Something like that.
That's really neat. I like the texture. I've seen this piece before. This is Sasha Brostov, the cat. It's a porcelain bisque, but this ABP label, this is later.
You know what it is? Sasha Brostov didn't sign any of his pieces but the prototypes.
Right. Yeah, it was all just a transfer signature. I seem to come into a lot of it. I know people who knew him, and so it just seems to keep coming to me. In the midst of several lovely Roseville pieces is this. This is Morning Glory. It's a different style because of the all-over design as opposed to a flower with a plain background or a textured background, and I just think it's really striking. It's one of their more popular patterns. Another one you don't see too often is Laurel, the yellow piece in the middle here. Those are priced in the $250 to $300 range. If you have the opportunity to buy sirens and signals, get them. They are very popular. They look cool. They can be rigged up. Some people like to have them flashing inside their rec room. This particular one is priced at $385. It is a beacon ray from about 1950. Looks like something that would have been on the top of Car 54 back in the days of that comedy. Virginia Austin, and this was for...
Same woman that designed Mortimer Snerd.
Oh, she did Mortimer Snerd. Oh, how interesting.
Worked for F&B Company.
Oh, I see. And these are all the things she did for F&B. I see.
On the end, the little guy with the maracas,
Yes.
he's not F&B. The other three are.
Oh, cool. Let's give a show with Clippo and his pals. Oh, I see. The point was that, you could make your own show with the F&B dolls. So they gave them the names and the characters, and then you put the show together.
Yeah, and there was a club. You had tickets. It was a big deal.
Oh, how interesting. So kids would buy these sets and put on marionette shows. Oh, that's so cool. I've never seen them before, honestly.
This guy we find quite often.
Really?
Yeah, the female, Liza Lee, she's hard to find. So we figured the boys didn't play with her doll.
Oh, but the girls did. Ah, that makes sense. Okay, it's why the opposite works in bikes, where you see lots of girls' bikes and not very many boys' bikes because they got thrashed.
Yeah.
Ah, how interesting. Thank you for introducing me to those. And then you've got some really cool figural napkin rings. Boy, I remember when people were crazy about these. This one's really neat, $98 for the cannon. This is going to be something from around the time of the Spanish-American War with the shield and eagle motif.
Mostly Japan and shit.
Yeah,
I'm not sure when
I like the horse there.
Well, I can't believe how many people picked that horse up.
I bet everybody did, because people just love horses. It's like horses and dogs are two motifs that just seem to sell in everything. And this one's really interesting because it's got the lighthouse and then the ship pennant, and then you roll your napkin up and put it in there. Very fussy, formal, and just fun. As pieces of silver plate go, I always thought the breakfast servers were interesting. This is Sheffield plate from John Round in England, it says. And you have the serrated area here so that everything can drip into the bottom, so things don't get mushy.
On buffets now at home,
Yeah.
putting ice in them and using them for shrimp.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense here in Florida that you would use it as a shrimp icer. Absolutely, because the water will drain into the bottom so it doesn't turn into a big messy thing. And yeah, it's a perfect size for that, actually. That's very smart. My MO on a cold day is to go where there's sun. So I'm going to go up to the big hill. I don't always get to go to the big hill because we're usually so busy, but I just figure we're going to be a little slow the first few hours until it warms up a bit, so I'm going to take advantage of it. The big red Pyrex bowl here is in perfect condition. It's actually orange red, and that's a harder color to find. $60 on that one. Pretty bicolor piece here, $150. And this one is a Fenton piece. It's hard to see the oval on the bottom, 1980s. Here is the Vernon organdy pattern. This came out around 1950, and it was probably the most popular thing they did at the time. You can see the organdy number T511 on this mixing bowl set. That's because this was a pretty new introduction at the time. They did several other versions of stripes and colors, and it was very popular in the early 50s. That's a nice sign. Thank you for being with us today. Love from the Renningers. Family owned and operated, and they have the big place up in Pennsylvania too. There is a neat looking barber chair from the 1970s. Love the color. I think things like this would be fun to have in a home theater. Why have theater seating when you can have something like this that you're made to be able to be comfortable to sit in for hours? Old painted panels and curtains from old circuses and traveling shows are always a lot of fun. Electro looks like, well, it was pretty dangerous. Big old Coleman canoe in an orange color from the 1970s. That looks like it's in great shape. And they sell for pretty good money, but compared to buying new, you're still going to do better buying an old one. These folks have the neatest jukeboxes in such great shape. The big console on the left, the Wurlitzer that they're working over right there, it says Wurlitzer hi-fi music right out of the 50s. They're just beautiful. They do all the restoration. They're asking $3,500 for the Seabird. These are definitely worth it, and they have such a wonderful bass response, so a lot of people who are audiophiles really enjoy having these, and you can store your record collection in them.
Over down here. Yep. Then the silver is where you lay the jukebox record. The white tells you what record playing. So it's a quarter turn halt.
All right, there's a lot of instructions. We are headed to the office to pay our bill so that we will be back here in February. Okay, $310 for the two booths. It should be just right. Here's a map that shows you how gigantic this can be. If all the spaces are filled, there are thousands of dealers here, and they're generally pretty full. This event has been... How long has this been going on?
84.
84 here. Okay, yeah, I guess this Pennsylvania is where it started earlier. We are in Florida, and screen print juice glass sets from the 40s, 50s, and 60s are very popular here. This little squat one is going to be from about 1950, only $12. And you could match it up with some non-matching glasses from other sets. This one's cool from the 70s, $18. And of course, there's the lemon and lime version. I have the lime version of this one. They have the lemon. And this one's fun because it's got all sorts of different fruits in various colors on it. There's a lot of varieties of these, and people do enjoy collecting them here. And then, of course, there's this guy. This is their usual Florida grotto scene, but it's great because they'd actually painted on the conch shell. They never filled in wood. It was to be a souvenir of.
This is the Hard Rock Casino, Hollywood, Florida.
All of this, and this is all from their layouts, like on...
Oh, yes. Like they took the old tables and then they repurposed it. Isn't that cool? I saw a really great casino table made like this that this would have been perfect with. How interesting.
Yep.
And now you said your daughter had something to do with this?
She works at
She works at the Hard Rock.
Oh, I see. Very good.
She was in charge of the layouts and stuff, so they decided that they were going to do a chair for breast cancer, because this is...
Aw,
They had
how nice.
they had an auction.
Oh, how cool. And you guys bought it, and that was a fundraiser for them. Oh, how neat.
Well, she put $100 in it worth of tickets.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
It's called Pinktober, I think.
Yeah.
On your side.
Oh, I see. Oh, what a nice idea. And they've got $350 on it, and it is a one of a kind. It was done as a fundraiser. So what a clever idea. That's really neat.
And then whatever money we got off of it, we donate it. We would donate it.
You donate the difference. Oh, that's really great. This one seems to have a lot of floats and buoys today. And these, which are actually very collectible now, these seem to be newer because they have a very waxy rope. I look for the older ones that have a little more age. Some kid in the 50s or 60s was all done up with this $100 set. It's got the belt and both guns and nicely painted graphics, and it is the whole thing. This is the Texan Junior. This is a 1960s line. I remember a few of these were still laying around when I was a kid. But cowboys and Indians stopped being a thing in the 1970s because the 70s was the time of anti-heroes. People didn't want to be the cowboy, and so you couldn't get people to play cowboys and Indians. Big chrome birds here. These are 1950s Chevrolets. And then this, I believe, came off of a Ford. It's missing this part of its acrylic crown there. But I like the old hood ornaments, and this one really does look like a jet fighter going on its own. Old matchbooks are collectible. They usually only sell for a few dollars each. These are Rock Island Railroad. My grandfather was served on the Rock Island for a while. The road of planned progress geared to the nation's future. Rock Island's future, unfortunately, was bankruptcy, followed by being merged in with a bunch of other railroads. Well, here's some old flash views out of the 60s. Let's twist. Ooh, look at her dance. They also seem to have the baseball player, and it's a swing and a miss. You could definitely find anything in here. Here's old Charlie Tuna. How much is Charlie Tuna?
He is $10.
$10. Okay, thank you.
And he is.
Oh, I see. He's got the tie bar with him. So is that a set then for 10 or?
Yeah, I'll sell them both for 10 if you want.
Okay, I think I'll take them. Here's something fun from the 50s or 60s, a musical lighter, so you wind it up and it plays Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. How appropriate. It's nice to see the art glass paperweights that were so popular in the 90s coming back into fashion again and people really collecting. I've had several of these that have the flat back and the flat base, and this one has the signature of Eichholt from 1988. That's a pretty one. It can set up or it can set flat. This one's D. Bagwell. Interesting scramble with, they call it a scramble when it's a bunch of different designs all thrust together like that. And then this one, I believe, is going to say Joe St. Clair on the bottom in the impression there. This is a pretty art glass vase too. This one's priced at $155. It's got a nice heavy thickness to it. There is a signature from 2008, and that is another Eichholt. Look at the way they did the flowers. It's a clear layer over. This is almost like millefiori set into the middle of an art glass vase. Eichholt really became quite masterful with his designs. Well, people are definitely catching on to Eichholt as a studio designer to look for in art glass. I sold both of my pieces this weekend. And if you are interested in learning more about designers, we're certainly getting a lot of good tips from people today, and this is what we do on this channel. So please subscribe if you haven't already. It doesn't cost you anything, and it does allow you to then click the bell to be notified of future videos. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel with memberships, we always appreciate our members and the extra contributions that they give. Let us do more content. You'll also get early access on the level 2 and level 3 of memberships, and you can check that information out below the dotted line in the description of any video. A couple of boat motors on stands here, and yes, boat motors are definitely collectible. I like the Evinrude stand that this is on from an old boat store. I doubt they're selling the stand, but it's $600 for the little Alto Ace motor. Cool little trade stimulator. Before gambling was legal in a lot of places, you could bet and win cigarettes. If you got 3 Raleighs, for example. Mobile Oil Arctic, this is an old-time store display, and what's great is that it actually has the correct filler nozzles on all of them. And that makes a big difference. The proper bottles really do increase the value. When I was a kid, you'd see these old gas cans and oil cans sitting in old barns and things, and we knew they were neat. We had no idea they'd be worth hundreds of dollars later, or we'd have probably kiped all of them, I suppose. But we were good kids, so we left them where they were, and now some other person got them, and they're for sale here. So many different varieties. They're really neat. And these larger square that hold a gallon, or sometimes an imperial gallon, or 2 gallons, are priced anywhere from, gosh, $125 and up, depending on the graphics. The Quaker State medium oil that's thin here is an unusual one from about 1930, priced at $6.75. So this is a whole subcategory of collecting in the realm of gas and oil petroliana, along with things like oil cans. Florida may not be a big surf culture place in terms of having big surf, but the surfboard thing is definitely something you see here. And the skateboard thing. This one is 150. It's Higgins glass. It's one of the drop bowls where they drop the center. Just beautiful. Great colors. This is a later piece, so it doesn't say Higgins around the edge. But it absolutely is one of their pieces. Just beautiful. Great design. These are Ceramic Art Studio, and they are shelf sitters. So they would sit like this on the edge of the shelf. If it was a little straighter, it wouldn't roll off. But we're going to set them right there so they stay safe. Ceramic Art Studio was a good company out of Madison, Wisconsin, and there's their mark on the bottom of those from about 1950. You have some interesting pieces of china here. This looks like a railroad pattern, but I don't recognize it.
When my wife and I used to collect those things, and I had so much I couldn't have filled. I have sold a lot. 3 or 4 tables, I couldn't have filled them up with it.
Oh, it's so neat with all the airbrushing. Yeah, I just love the patterns.
They are really nice.
They really are. Wow, look at this big barrel. Lots of things came in barrels in the old days. Dishes came in barrels, and Zanzibar brand coriander came in barrels. And you can even see the factory. This looks like something from about 1920. I've always liked these folding deck chairs made of wood. If I can buy them for $10 or $15, they usually sell for about $25 or $30. And there's a whole group of them all together. Sometimes they'll have advertising on them and they're worth more, or they'll have the original organization stencil on them. Here's a bunch of fun telephones. They put new centers in them because you could put the bell system thing in there. I like this one. This is the Flying Saucer rotary phone from Northern Telecom. Those were made in Canada, and they made some really neat stuff that was differently styled than what we were used to. AT&T wall phones here. This one on the left says Bell System by Western Electric. The Princess phone, it started as a rotary, then it became push button. If you have the first year push button that doesn't have the pound sign, those are worth a lot of money. Nice looking two-tone here. And then your greens and reds, these are the Model 500, which a lot of us grew up with. If you're a little bit older, you might have grown up with this model instead. The ITT and the orange here with the rotary dial is pretty cool.
You're denying update here. What, about 10 years?
Oh gosh, about 10 years in this spot, yeah, and it's actually done really well. Our neighbors are open.
Yeah, we're actually from Florida, but my sister just moved back from Colorado.
Oh, Colorado, that's right. I heard a cold weather state somewhere in there, yes.
So I feel right at home now.
Frolicking Elephants, art and home decor, I love that. Michelle and Maria, yes, that's right. And they have some really, really neat stuff. I like this little piece a lot. This is mid to late 1800s, and I love the two tiers, and the cloverleaf cutout is really neat. This is Hager, and it's 1980s, but I have never seen this piece where she's holding up the big sunburst. That is just beautiful. I think they have that priced at about $200. This leather little hippie purse, I really like that. That is just like the stuff that was being sold on the pier in California when I was a very, very little kid. All hand tooled. And what do they have on this piece? They are asking $25, which seems pretty reasonable for what it is. Look at the way they display. So they've got a suitcase. It's a good suitcase, but they're displaying prints and photos and artwork in it. They're displaying books in it. I mean, this is really neat because you could take this home and do something like this too. I really like the way they put it together. They have some nice vintage rugs. The one on the left there is true antique. You can tell by the color. It also has just that right amount of wear. A lot of people like to buy these worn. They're not looking for perfect because they're using these in antique and vintage displays, and they want it to have the look of old. So, very cute display. How's it been for you this weekend?
It's been good. It's our first experience, so just getting our feet wet. Yeah, it's been fun just to see all the different people coming through and the different things that they're asking for. It's been
It is interesting, yeah, and then you kind of tailor it. I remember my first show, I did a certain amount, and I was really excited about it, and I always did better after that, because it's like you learn the audience, and
Tailor it.
you tailor it to where, oh, what a great Marimekko. This is really cool.
Anytime I find Marimekko, I scream inside.
Yeah, oh, that is terrific, and actually, if that's your price, you just made your first sale. I love it.
Well, more than welcome. Thank you.
Here's a neat thing I always like. This is a fender skirt, and the point of the fender skirt was to keep the grease off of the car while you were doing the work. And this particular one is for Quaker State motor oil. They're usually for motor oil or auto parts or that sort of thing. And this one I'd say is from the 50s because it's got the Quaker State keeps cars running young engine life preserver sign. And that's what the signs in front of the gas stations for Quaker State would have looked like in the 50s. This guy has the Man Cave Mafia, and boy, he definitely does have the stuff for the home bar. Now, a lot of this is kind of new old stock of things that are somewhat of vintage, but not really yet old. But it's a lot of stuff that people really do like to collect for their man caves and bars these days. Beer taps and lots of signs, and some of them are a little bit older. This old Vienna is going to be 1980s. When you see that squarish plastic with the molding like that, that's typically of that era, particularly when you see something that is an attempt to make lettering look like neon, because neon was big again in the 80s. It was a revival from the 50s that came back. On the other hand, this is a nice old Amelie sign here. A little bit damaged, but these days the prices have run up so high on the gas and oil stuff that even in damaged condition, this is worth a few $100s easily. This is one of these grease cans. You see these in gas stations, but also around larger machinery, even at small airports. They had these sorts of things back in the 50s and 60s. This table's buy one and get one free at $10 each. I like this pink. These are 1930s. I believe this is Fenton City who did these textured paint glasses here. It's a little more of a peachy pink than most depression glass. Fenton City was more of an elegant glass company, though. The green bubble there, also known as Provincial by Anchor Hawking in the forest green. And you know, at buy one, get one free, these little crackle glass ewers are only $5 each. That's a pretty viable price. I'll have to see if I have the need for more of those in my inventory right now. I think I might, because I've been selling quite a few of them. This one has the waffle mark that tells us that's Pilgrim glass. Earlier piece of theirs, they did a waffle impression on their ponthole to make it a little less rough. This one is also a fairly smooth ponthole. With the riggery, I believe that's also Pilgrim glass. And then this one's a nice little Amberina. This one is more likely Kanawa because it was done in a mold. It doesn't have a ponthole mark. But I think I'll take these two. This is a nice Fenton piece with the etch here. Fenton Ming from the 1920s and 30s. This is Cambridge Caprice here. And I like the little shell dishes as well. The prices are certainly right on a lot of this stuff, so I'll probably do a little shopping here. I like this Biking Epic piece where it's a little more freeform. It's more of a handkerchief pull as opposed to just the regular molded pieces that you see like this by them. They have the teapot in the Ebb Tide by Hull. I just think this is the most fun line. It definitely looks like sea colors in the pinks and greens. This is right out of the 50s. It's got a little seahorse as the finial. And then if you tip this up here, you will see the hole mark on the bottom. I just think that's the neatest thing. And this is what it looks like when it's up. They had it down so it wouldn't blow in the wind overnight. They do have the creamer, they don't have the sugar, but that is a really fun piece in my opinion. This one they have $60 for the two pieces, and then you would just have to find the third, which would give you something to look for when you're collecting. $11 on the Nelson Decoy planter, and that certainly is a vintage piece. You can see the crudeness, the way that it broke a little bit off the kiln because the glaze stuck to it, and it's got dots from the firing. This was not high-end stuff when it was new. They even skipped a little bit of the glaze there, but people like this rusticness about it, and so at $11, that's actually a pretty good deal. Oh, and I like this, the bird with the flower frog, and the $28 is just what I would put on it. This one's Japanese, interestingly enough. Usually you see Czech, but the Japanese did these too, and their colors are a little brighter than the Czech usually. as you see there. So now you've got fun stuff.
Oh, those here, because that seems to be what's selling for me.
Well, yes, and on a cold day, you know, big stuff maybe, maybe not, but definitely the little stuff. I like the Blendo glass here with the tall, these are like zombie tumblers from the 1960s when that was a new drink. $75 for the set. Blendo's very, very popular now, of course. And this is fun because it's $55, but it's the original box for the Whiting and Davis, which I always look for the original boxes, so. And then there's these. This is Spaceport USA, and that's in Huntsville, isn't it?
Not sure. It's on the other side.
Yeah, it's got the space shuttle, and of course, because those aren't flying anymore, anything space shuttle related is starting to be collectible, especially here in Florida. And she's got a set of 4 of those. Those are pretty neat, actually. I haven't seen those before. If you see anything like this with dancers doing arabesques and this sort of thing on tumblers, the modernists love this sort of stuff. Modernist designs of fish, any of that sort of thing. And these are by Federal Glass. She has them correctly attributed there. $45 for the set is about what they should sell for retail. And aren't they fun? I'd love to see a big picture and stuff to go with those. I'm sure there was one originally. Well, this guy has made a few new ones of these for this season. We've shown you these in the past here. They are custom made. They take the pieces of cars and turn them into bars. This one's a 55 Plymouth Savoy. This one is someone who drove a big Ford truck but was keeping grandma off the streets in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, I believe, by supporting bingo. This is the front of an old Ford V8 truck, about a 55. My dad had the original of that truck. And then this is the back of a little Nash Metropolitan. Isn't that cute? All these come out of Connecticut. This one is $22.95, and maybe a little bit easier size to get into your man cave or your rumpus room.
This was kind of strange, but
The secret compartment, I was wondering, I figured there must be some access to that box, but I never thought as easy as just lifting that out.
we've heard that people have found like little gold things stuck out.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that people find things in those. I've seen pieces of furniture like that before too. Neat molded rookwood pottery. I like the color schemes here. This is a lot of the 1930s era coloration in rookwood. And you see prices, well, this one's $19.19. You see prices starting at $85 and up on these. I just think their molded ware is really nice because it may not have as much design as the artware in terms of underglaze painting, but they did a lot of design in the molds. I like the trivet especially here. Here's another ribbon case. I've only seen one of these for the first time recently, and now here's a second one. And this is from the Gibson Girl era, when wearing ribbons in your hair. Your very long hair was very popular. 1895 is the patent date on it, as you can see on that piece there. And the ribbons would just hang down row after row after row. And then you would access it from the side or in the front where these would fold down. Very neat case. Priced at $14.50. Very specific thing, but for a collector, certain things would be perfect. And then, of course, they have the stacking barrister's bookcase behind it there. And that one is a Globe Wernicke. And it's only priced at $8.75, which is a pretty good deal, considering it has a base on it. Usually they don't have the legs on the base, they just sit flat, or they sit on a small platform. Some neat blue and white transfer here. This is transfer ware, meaning a decal under the glaze, but look how detailed this was. Once the English figured out how to do this, they really went to town with it. This one's got this wonderful peace on earth with the beasts of the field all congregating together happily, not eating one another, which is nice. And it says, "Give us this day our daily bread." This one is the Millennium pattern. I like the acrylic chairs. These are Italian from the 1980s. They have a few scratches. They can be buffed out, but scratching is always a problem with those. You have to look for. Condition makes a big difference to the buyers. Reagan and Gorbachev, Spitting Image had a lot of fun with them. The British parody of politics. That show was very popular in the 80s, and they did rather unflattering caricatures of everyone, although they were nice enough to take his strawberry mark on his forehead and turn it into a hammer and sickle. And then here's their Ronald Reagan version. They did all of these as very gargoyle-ish puppets. And they made these little figures, which the Gorbachev, I noticed, is a squeaker. The Reagan, I'm not sure, still squeaks. He's hardened up over the years. There he goes. L. Kirsch collages. They're fun from the 1970s and early 80s, and they took lots of parts and repurposed them. And this was before a lot of other people had come up with this idea of repurposing. They are collectible in and of their own right now. There's the Tower Bridge in London. And this one is a London bus. I think they're just fun and clever, and in this age of repurposing and steampunk, they seem like they're kind of right in with the ethos again. They are original orological collages, and with a lot of broken watches running around now, I would not be surprised if this idea that came in 1970 is revived now. Lee Reynolds, they're fun, they have a signature, and they were all done as factory paintings, so they're not really by somebody named Lee Reynolds. They were actually done in a factory, and they just kept painting canvases and signing them with that name. Very popular in furniture stores in the 70s and 80s, and it is a good look, and you get a big piece of wall art for an inexpensive price. Just don't think that that's an original artist. Morgantown Glass made these Old Crow glasses for your little cocktails in the 1960s and 70s. These are only $5 a piece. That seems like a really good price. And you even have the great collection of bourbon drink recipes to go with it. And that's $2. And I know someone who really likes Old Crow, and I think that the recipe book at least is a must-buy. Morton Studios in the United States made very realistic looking dog figures, and they're very dense and heavy, and they will have this stamp on the bottom. Check them over for ships, but $8.50 is a good price for these. There was a very active collector's market for these 20 or 30 years ago, and so there are collections out there. And when those start to come to the market, I think we'll see renewed interest in these. A lot of people just haven't seen them lately. This is a very sad little elephant in a cage, a very tiny cage, saying, "Please feed me." And that's because he's a bank, and the idea was he was locked in the cage so you couldn't just immediately easily get your money out. Two different prices on that one. I like the $2 price better. And here is a little dream pet that is a naga hide. If you get the ones that were made as naga hide for the furniture company, they're worth some real money, but people like the naga hide animals regardless. That one's priced at $12.50. This is a cigarette dispenser. You put the cigarettes in the top, and when you pull the tail, why, lo and behold, a cigarette comes out of a not very welcoming place. Anvils are very popular now. Even smaller ones are selling for good numbers. These are $75 each. This one's Famous Furnace out of Cleveland, Ohio. That would have been the Forge. I like that it has the name on it. This one's plain. And this one is the little smithy anvil for your little blacksmith. Sirocco wood. These are from about 1950, the Boy Scout bookends. Girl Scouts would have had a version as well. Cool fire helmets. I have not had one of these in a while. And they have a ton of cigar cutters underneath them, a whole line of them by various companies. Now the Empire seems to have been repainted, but we've got National Specialty here from Philadelphia. That one's priced at $85. We've got the Triumph in the back there. Any big cigar store would have had these at the time because you had to cut the tobacco for your customers. Enterprise was one of the big manufacturers of various cast iron out of Philadelphia, so you see a lot of things marked Enterprise. Cigar cutters, kitchenware, all sorts of things. Empire Tobacco Company, that one's out of Quebec. Anything specific to a tobacco company is a little harder to find, and this one's got a little bit of a red tracery here too, so it was a little fancier. That's also priced at $85. Prices are pretty fair on all this stuff so far, I've got to say. Doctor's bag at $60 in good condition seems about right. I like the fire nozzle too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What do you get for that?
Like $100 for it.
100? That's pretty fair.
That is fair.
I like the Carstairs thermometer, but when you're looking at thermometers, you got to look at where you see the color. And if it skips, see how it goes up to 40 and then it skips to 80, that means there's something wrong with it and that's going to have to be replaced. So I'm going to leave that one. All right, we are headed up to the very last space in the show. I'm starting at the end and working my way back. Neat Westinghouse fan here for $50. Bunch of railroad lanterns, but I see around $125 each on those, and those are out of my range. Big fancy Campo de Monte with the angel on the top is $85. That seems like a good price for that big urn. Another interesting piece of Israeli painted brass from about 1970. This one's rather lightweight, this jar, but it's got a lot of detail and a nice modernist bottom. Hakuli Israel is the name on that one, and they're asking $25. Someone a little more clever than I could make cushions for this Morris chair that's only $50 and turn it into a really wonderful recliner, because these were the very first recliner. The Morris design had this bar, and you would move it between these three positions, and then the seat could lean back. This is before mechanical recliners, of course. This is something that comes out first at around the 1880s. And this one just needs the cushions. It looks like it's in wonderful shape. Otherwise, it's got these great paw feet. Right now, if you're willing to work a little bit on furniture, you can get really crazy good deals on it. This multicolored bowl is based on the Currier and Ives prints of the 19th century, but would have been made in the 20th century. Reproductions from Currier and Ives by Adams. This is a midnight race on the Mississippi. The big serving bowl would be worth more if it wasn't in crazed condition with the staining. It's only $22.50. Well, the good news is that generally when it's cold in January, the February show has great weather, and I've got to tell you, it is definitely chilly today. So come out in February when the weather warms up a bit. I've had these in estate sales. I've seen them in appraisals. I've never seen one sell. They've got $4.95 on this. It's the least expensive one I've seen. This is an old engine analyzer. Now we have computers that do all this stuff and take up a lot less room. But they're cool looking. You could use it as a cabinet, I suppose, and it does have a neat look. These fellows sure have the Empoli bottles, a whole lot of them. A bunch with stoppers and a bunch without. And I see prices ranging from about $95 to $180 on these. They were mainly done just to pour inexpensive Italian wine in and sell back in the day. And so they were very plentiful, but a lot of people threw them out. A lot of stoppers got lost. And so now there's a demand for them that we had not seen in the past. Just saw a piece of Legras cameo glass in Seattle. Here's a slightly earlier one with the purplish leaves on them. Very pretty. Legras did very nice work, and you see the signature down on the bottom. If you see a piece of cameo glass with a big signature right in the middle, it's probably a fake, because the originals were more subtle about how they signed their pieces. Isn't this cute? It's an enamel top on wood table, and it's got the 4 Art Deco wooden chairs to match. Love that color. Right out of the early 30s, $5.50 for the whole set, but you just never see the whole sets. It'd be a perfect size for a breakfast nook. That's what they were made to fill. Always like these Art Deco utility lights. These would have been for porches or foyers at the time. Just a really fun look, very much of the era. Here's some carnival chalkware in the form of vases rather than figures. You don't see the vases nearly as often. You see these sorts of chalkware figures from the 1930s and 40s, Snow White and the Lone Ranger and Donald Duck and all sorts of fun guys. These were also from carnivals. These were the hand-painted on linen pieces that you would knock down, so these were your targets. The color on these coral lamps, and they look so good with these fiberglass chairs, which I believe are actually Ames, if I recognize the shape. They said that they did folk art, and boy, these are really interesting. Talk about some repurposing here.
Here's some of my stuff right here.
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh, I love the dentures. Do you make these?
I make this. These are what you trained on in dental school.
Yes, that's right.
And then it was just a pewter.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then a foundry mold on top.
Yep.
And then my wife, Laura, she makes the eyes.
Oh, okay. In a kiln?
Yes, fused glass.
That is fantastic. Wow. You really have to have an imagination to do this sort of thing.
It's like playing when you were a little kid. It's that kind of fun.
Yeah, it must really be. I wish I had the brain that worked this way, but you have made some really cool stuff. And look at what you're using, ping pong paddle.
Oh, this is just an old plane, like you'd shave, you know.
Yeah, right.
And then I use this foundry mold. And the first time I made it, I put heaven here and hell here. And I thought, well, no, hell's down low. Georgia. And then I thought, well, what am I going to put back here? Dollar General. We all know where the Dollar Generals are.
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere. Oh, and this guy with the cat's paw for the ears, that's pretty clever.
Yeah, those are But then I buy other artists' art. Like this is a lady up in Georgia.
Oh, yeah, it looks like something from Muertos, yes.
Yeah. And then I love these wall pockets. Oh my gosh. I just love wall pockets.
Oh, those I do too. Those are really fun.
Look at the likeness of Stonewall Jackson.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's Breezy Ellis. He's on Facebook and he just makes them unbelievable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did he do a lot of these small pieces as well?
No, now this is Nancy Ball Richards. She is an artist in North Carolina that does killer stuff. And then this lady, all that roll back there is all Nancy Ball.
Oh, wow.
Great face jokes.
Interesting. So a lot of names to look for. I mean, these are things that are being currently made as folk art, but, you know, people come and go just like everything else. So these are things to be aware of the future. Did you do the robot?
I did not do that, guy. That's the one that got me inspired to start doing this.
Really?
What I do. I saw that in an antique mall in Pennsylvania. And I thought, man, I want to start making stuff like that. So I bought a bunch of these art. I sold quite a few toys at this show. This has been a good show.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, it certainly is. Well, you have some nice 1920s and 30s era Lionel cars that we don't see very often anymore.
And look at the condition of
The
it.
condition's really good. Yeah, they were not played with hard. And obviously you like folk art of all eras and appreciate, because it looks like a lot of these animals, these were things that were made at home 1940s, 50s.
You're exactly right. And that was made in Corydon, Indiana. And it was a black guy, a local black guy that everybody knew. And he would sit around and just carve in his later years in life.
Stephen Felbert?
Uh-huh. And he makes this, that chair back there. But the Serpent Lounge, Betty's Beauty Bar and Serpent Lounge.
I especially think that's interesting. Yes.
It's a hoot.
It's really amazing because you're taking things that otherwise would end up in landfills and you're turning it into something that's really artful and interesting and unique. That is, there's not going to be more like this because it's whatever you can come up with, and it just takes you to where it takes you, doesn't it? Every time you see something.
All these black
Here's your parts. Yep.
They were going to get burnt. That's America's Standard out of Louisville. And an artist up there got wind of it, went and had his students paid him on a Saturday to clear out this warehouse.
Wow.
And he had trailer loads of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He passed away. His wife wanted to get rid of them. So an artist friend of mine named Robbie Mueller said, hey, you need to get up here and get some of these. And I've got a boatload of them. I mean,
Oh, that is fantastic.
I'll use those in my art, and just different things.
Oh, absolutely. And do you mind if I show you?
Oh, that's fine.
And so tell us your name.
Steve Marks.
Very good,
And
Steve.
I'm an artist, an antique dealer. My wife and I do art together. And that's Laura back there somewhere.
Yes.
We've been antique dealers for I'm 66 and I've been doing it since I was 21.
Oh, how cool. And this has reinvigorated your interest, and you're still doing the antiques, but you're finding a way to take this old stuff and keep it alive in a new form.
Pretty much.
There's a Sasha Brastoff Alaska line folded tray. We don't see so many of those. And then this is the Rooftops line, also by Sasha. I always like the way that these are painted. These are 1930s, but this feather painting is something you see all the way back to the 1700s. This particular one is a 1930s made in the Hanley shops by Newhall in England. Some fun pieces of Georges Briard. This seems like a great deal at $18 for this with the mosaic tray. I like the double trays with the dropout and a little bit more color. We see a lot that are the gold like this. He helped keep a lot of other companies alive by decorating things that had been generally just plainware before, particularly the Columbia metalware company that made all of this dishware. He took this very plain enamelware and decorated up with this line, and it was a big success in the late 1960s. I do like the modernist streamlined designs of the Royal Ducks pieces he has here. This one, which is, I believe, supposed to be Lady Godiva on a very stylized horse, has the Czechoslovakia mark, which means that it's before it became the Czech Republic. You'll often see the pink triangle porcelain mark on their items as well. And Al has a really great look too. This is a hull pattern we don't see so often. This is the Lily, and it's in the blue. $48. Hull is still a good bargain. We are in Florida, and 1950s Panthers are very, very, very popular here. $67.50 on the Planter. Westmoreland glass did a lot of these with the cats in the 1890s. We usually see them in milk glass. This one was done in a satin and reverse painted. So the design comes out, it's $30. I think that's an interesting treatment for those and very cute. Well, Bright Ideas has a wonderful selection of lamps and lighting, and some of it is newer. You see the repurposing of Jack Daniels and Tanqueray bottles into wall sconces, but they have a lot of really neat old pieces too. Look at all the hanging lamps at the top of the tent here. This one's kind of fun for the kitchen with the painting of the fruit. This one's a 1930s lamp. They've got a newer Edison Mazda Parish print in the back, but that is in fact an original lamp from the day. Well, it looks like we have sold a scale. We're just moving the dolly up to it. That is an amazing scale like the ones they used to have at the public stores. They still have them in the Florida stores. They don't do it in the stores outside the state of Florida, but I loved those as a kid because I would always stand on that and get weight every time we went to the grocery store, and I still do that when I'm in Florida. I always liked the 1930s ribbon girls, and this one is especially elaborate. Look at the way she's dressed. So someone basically took a paper doll form and embellished it. It's just so fun and pretty, and they're generally very unique. This is spangled glass. You can see the silvery in it. Yeah, it really is a pretty piece and all hand blown. It looks like it's had some age. Very cute. That seems like a great price at $22. I always like the twist handles on these old baskets.
Usually the twisted handle.
Yes. And then these with the spiky handles. I guess so no one wanted to pick it up by the handle.
Yeah, I guess that was it.
Now these don't have the evidence of age that the other ones do. They did do reproductions of these, so you have to be watchful. People do collect the Greyhound because the graphic is so good. Players, please. This is a flange side. Players is an English cigarette. They're popularly sold in Canada as well. I like the old Pennsylvania license plates because originally they had the keystone, so they're a little fancier than the early plates from most other states. Those kids are going to fall out of that bus. Yes, these Las Vegas dice clocks from the 1970s and 80s are collectible now. This one's priced at $22. I've actually gotten more than that for them. 1980s or 90s Blanco with the square label there. This looks like a Matt Carter design. At a certain point, Viking Glass just gave up the idea that you were actually using these. They realized they were sculptural, so they just made them with open sides. I think it's really fun. I've been noticing accordions again. This one is half price. A little bit of trim missing, but it looks like it's all intact with celluloid.
Those work.
It's Italian, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty. I like these signs. The Lincoln Hotel must have been quite impressive if it had 400 rooms. And of course, we all are learning to look for any of these pre-reflective signs where they put the glass beads in so that you would get some sort of a shine back. These are definitely very collectible now. Carboys can fill with a lot of things other than coins. Marbles go in them, corks go in them, buttons go in them. Here's some fun little decanters for dressing. We've got Russian and Italian, a couple different versions. These were done in the 1950s, and they have a little bell in the bottom, and they are a measure of cheer, and you would actually do your shot measures on the side and dump it into your cocktail. And I always get a kick out of these dogs. These are 1950s versions, Japanese, based on 1930s German versions. And they are decanters. This one says he's for rye. I always thought the seal cookie jar by Dora of California was a cute piece. Dora was a company that only lasted into the early 70s. $49.50 on that. They have a question mark on their tag, but they are right. This is Blanco. This is the Vineyard line. It is the chalice. They didn't make chalices in too many lines. They did it in this, and they did it in Air Twist. A lot of people confuse RRP, Robinson Ramsbottom Pottery Company, with Roseville because RRP actually was in the town of Roseville, Ohio, whereas Roseville was made in Zanesville. Very cute little pieces that you rarely see. They did do some things other than crockery and kitchenware and that sort of thing. These little planters are not easily found. They're asking for $65 each. These are going to be from the 1950s. I like the snail in particular. Mark Belair did really fun, fanciful designs. His have a lot of harlequins and dancers. The shapes are really fun, just like Sasha Brostoff's were. This is how they're typically signed. This is the Mardi Gras line. All these pieces are Mardi Gras, and they're priced between $45 for the little tray, $75 for the two-lobed, $80 for the large piece. Those are pretty typical prices for Bel Air. Back when Pink Panther was just a detective and this guy was not yet a famous cartoon character, the Pink Panther movie came out and the Pink Panther soundtrack, and I played it to death. The theme to Pink Panther, perhaps more than any other song, got into the consciousness of a younger generation and probably has helped keep the art of jazz alive. These folks have a lot of really nice quality slipware, salt glaze, crockery, and just some really attractive examples. 145 on the one on the right. I really like this one because it's got the Worcester, Massachusetts maker name on it, and that makes a big difference. People like anything with the feather design. Feathers, flowers. There is the bee sting on the right there. That's a famous pattern. Now here is real Flow Blue. Flow Blue typically is earlier, it's thicker. The blue flows sometimes all the way onto the back. When they first figured out how to do transfer wear using decals between the clear glaze and the base of the piece, sometimes the clear glaze would cause it to run, and the English did not like that. They considered that a factory second. They sent it all to the United States on boats and sold it to us, and we ate it up. And so even today, the collectors of Flow Blue are in the United States. The English do not have an appreciation for it. I've always liked spongeware and spatterware. They literally use sponges to apply the glaze and just kept repeating it, just like people sponge painted walls about 20 years ago. $35 on the little kid bank and $75 on the big bowl here, both from about 1900. These are really beautiful in frames. These are strip puzzles. They were not interlocking. This was just for children to make it easy for them. Look how cool. The graphics. I like the owl and the macaw. Framing this is a really great way to preserve them where you can see them and enjoy them every day instead of having them in a bag or a box. This is really fun, the old electric meter that's been turned into a lamp. This looks like something done with a 1980s era lamp. They have 145 on it. I just sold the little table like this that I bought in Spokane, and I always like the Californian and Mexican tile tables. Mexican because it doesn't have quite as much detail. A. Thomas Schomburg is still living. He's a Colorado sculptor and artist. I really like this. It's called the Iron Cross, but it is a gymnast holding himself up by the hoops in the position of the cross. It's a really interesting piece. This one was done in the 1980s. We do see some original sculpture and art at this show. I like the yo-yo quilt, all the little circles put together. And this is a nice big one. Usually they're smaller than this, 1930s and 40s typically. And they've actually got several quilts and appliques that are really pretty. I like the chenille in the middle with the basket especially. This is a set of Indiana glass fruit pieces from, late 70s, early 80s. And I've actually always liked this. The texturing and the colors are good. I think this will start being collectible. I always liked the leek shamrock, and this is just a small piece that they've made for years, but this is an art space, and this has the black mark. The last black mark was 1946, so this actually has some age, and the price is not bad at all, and it is the shamrock, which sells well, so I think I'll ask Art if I can put this in my bag too. Well, this is Art, and he just sold me a cool Space Needle decanter, which I'm very happy about. Looks like he's got a customer for some more stuff, so I better not hold him up. But I'm just very excited to meet you. I'm glad you're watching the channel, and hey, we'll have fun together again. Yes. Now that I know you're here, I'll come shop you every time.
Thank you, sir.
I really encourage you to come visit the next Mount Dora show or a real-world antique show in your area. You get to see and touch and feel all this stuff, find out all the things that you didn't see online that are interesting, and then you can go do more research and, well, you might become a collector.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.